All right, hello. The Artificially Intelligent podcast is here. It's back. We took a week off. My name is Nathan. I am a white, hunky, cracker-ass comedian in the state of Iowa, corn flyover country that nobody pays attention to. My partner in crime is Barrett Antar Goodwin, a Black African-American person of color who is a musician in Philadelphia. Hello, Barrett.
How are you, sir?
I'm cold. It's cold this morning. It's the wind is blowing out of the northeast and it's biting. It's
that
a cold
sounds like
day. We took a
sounds
week
like
off.
The
We
beginning
both,
of a Neil Young song.
What's that?
That sounds like the beginning of a Neil Young song.
No, that could be, yeah. We're back. We took a week off. We both traveled places. I went to Aruba and you went to
Prague, Denmark, Switzerland.
You went several places.
Yeah.
Tell me about your journeys. Mine was just a vacation. You went for work, didn't you?
No, I saw the pictures of yours. It looked like fun.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. I got what wasn't in the picture was the fact that while I was in Aruba, I got offered cocaine on not the first day there, like we landed, we went out, but the first day of vacation, we were walking to a restaurant and everyone got ahead of me, so I was by myself. And when you're by yourself, hey buddy, you need a little and I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, you sure? I'm like, we're good. So always good to get
but let's backtrack that for just a moment. How old was this guy? Ballpark.
I don't know, 40s, 50s.
Did he look unsuccessful?
He didn't look like anything. He just looked like a guy that was hanging out in Aruba.
Right, but that's what I mean. Like, yeah. Did he look like the kind of right now? And
he wasn't dressed like Miami Vice, and he didn't look like a beach bum. Right. He just looked like a dude that was his job.
You were walking towards where?
We were walking down the beach looking for a restaurant. We said, let's just go walk down the beachfront and look for a restaurant. And because I amble and they were speedy, we went with another couple. So they're just walking probably 10 feet ahead of me. And I just, I'm just walking and looking around. And he did not ask the three of them if they wanted cocaine.
Right.
And I doubt he would have picked out four people. But since I was walking by myself, it seemed appropriate.
I wonder if it's like a throwback to like Aruba, Cancun, all these places where college kids go on vacation and then 20 years, 30 years later come back as adults. And maybe like I'm so curious, like why does he like I'm like reverse engineering the truth, which is very dangerous, right? But like why would he assume that you would want that? Right? Like maybe he just
an assumption that I wanted it. I think he's just playing the numbers. He's a salesman.
Right. He could just be. But I mean, like, but for
anybody he could have asked us if it was all four people. I just thought I got targeted because I was by myself. Like as opposed
I wonder. That's the thing, right? Like I wish we could get him on the podcast. You know what I mean? 'Cause, like really, like next time somebody does some crazy shit like that to you, ask if you can get them on the podcast.
Okay,
tell them we'll
the only thing is I didn't think it was that crazy. I just thought it was like, oh, this guy's trying to sell me coke. It didn't.
No, but not crazy. But like, I'm so curious.
How come I live in Iowa and you're wearing the Iowa shirt?
Oh, because it's super comfortable. I bought it from a thrift store. I
didn't even notice that until right now.
It's like it is this remarkably comfortable shirt. It's all linky and dusty.
You get that at my wedding?
No, I got it from a thrift store. I love the color scheme, though. Like, the colors look good. They match an outfit I have, oddly enough. And the fabric.
And this is when everyone turned off the podcast. What the fuck are they talking about? They were just talking about cocaine. Now they're talking about
No, it's just like it's comfortable. You know what I mean? Like, I wear a lot. I pretty much only wear t-shirts. So, like, shitty t-shirts are fucking gross. Anyway. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see why he targeted you. Maybe you're right. It's just a numbers game. It's like catfishing or whatever they call it. You know what I mean? You just go out and you just throw out numbers. But my guess is if he's been doing it for a while, he has like I'll tell you, when we were over there, weed is illegal over there, right?
Really?
Yeah. In Denver. You can buy CBD and all that shit, right? So we bought some CBD and it was fun. We're like, oh look, we can pretend to smoke joints on the street. Look at us, But like in reality, it's kind of stupid, right? But like some of the ways that people met each other, where people would come up and be like, "Hey, man, do you know where I can find some weed?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I'm not from around here. I don't know. But what do you play?" And then they go, "Oh, I do this. Oh, I'm a promoter. I'm a this. I'm a
Right.
manager." I'm like, "Oh, well, I do. Oh, we should connect." And then we link up on Facebook, and then we're buddies. And all of a sudden, it's like we're recommending restaurants to each other, all because somebody said, "Hey, man, you got some weed." And I wasn't offended that they came to me because it wasn't because I was black. It's because I was an American. And
And you
it's
have
like,
dreads.
and well, right. But not, I see, that's the funny thing. Because, and again, I don't want to go down this road unless we have to, right? But it is amazing to go somewhere where every interaction with a person who doesn't look like me isn't covered in the sheen of race. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually really fascinating to, like, it's something that you don't even understand until you experience it. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds completely ridiculous, but it's just something you don't understand until you go somewhere. Because even white Americans, it disappears on them too. Like, it's just like it's all just bullshit, right? Because the minute you get there, and I'm not saying people from Texas are racist, so don't take this the wrong way, Texan people, both of you who watch this, but it's like, met this old dude from Texas, and he's like, he heard me talk, and he goes, "Oh, you're American." And he didn't sound like that, but that's the best Southern accent I can do. And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, buddy, tell me." And all of a sudden, we're friends, right? Because we're both American. Like, all of a sudden, my blackness doesn't matter anymore, and I'm American. And I noticed that a lot. I met a lot of Americans who are like, "Oh, you're American," and would want to befriend me all of a sudden.
See, that's
And
funny just because
no,
it was automatic. Nobody was like, "Oh, you're American." In Aruba, it was just naturally assumed. They walked up and said, "Can you drink an Atlantic water?" Like, okay. We never got a, "Oh, are you Canadian or American?" Or it was just like, "Oh, American." Like, there was no surprise. And you heard Dutch accents and German. You heard a
right.
little of it, but it was just natural. And or like, are we that fat? Are we that loud? Are we that overly confident? What is it?
That was actually the excuse everybody would use when somebody in their band would do some dickhead thing. "Ah, we're American. They expect it of us."
We
That's
said
what
the same thing.
everybody
We
said.
pulled an
It's
illegal
so
U-turn at one
ridiculous.
point and said, "Oh, we're Americans. We do what we want."
Right. Exactly. Right. Like, because we kind of do. And you kind of see that. Like, you see that, like, there are cultural differences, right? Again, this whole race thing, it's just bullshit. It's just nonsense. Because you go someplace where everybody's white, but they're not all the same, right? The people in Prague are very different from the people in Denmark, who are kind of different from the people in Switzerland, even though to the untrained eye, they all look alike, right? And I was like, "Oh, this is funny," right? Like, this is just bullshit because these people don't necessarily all get along with each other, and they're not all the same. And culturally, they're wildly different from each other. They're wildly different. And like, we have this idea that, and I saw black people there, and I would see them and I would nod, and they'd be like,
Dude, I
"That's
told you
odd."
that story though. That's
I
my
know.
favorite story from South
It's
Korea.
like, right.
I'll tell it to anybody
Tell
that
it
doesn't know.
again.
I was
Yes.
in South
It's like
Korea with a black
hilarious.
comedian, and we're walking down the street, and a black guy comes walking toward us, and he gives him the nod. I remember, yeah, he gave him the sup, and the guy just sort of, I don't even kept walking. And my buddy was pissed. He's like, "The fuck's up here?" And I started laughing. He's like, "What's the like?" He's actually African. Did you see the way
Right.
he was dressed? Like,
Right.
and the joke that never worked for me was, and I always thought it was funny, is like, if he as an African did that every time he saw, he'd be a bobblehead because walking around Africa,
Right.
he's black. But my American friend was so pissed that he didn't get the sup from this guy. And I'm like, they don't do that in Africa.
They don't do that. I noticed it all over where they're all. I only saw like maybe 10 black folks until I got to Switzerland. Switzerland, there's a lot more, oddly enough, right? And I think I saw like a soccer team or a volleyball team, and of course that happened.
Soccer team.
Right. But one of the things that I noticed, it's like, right, there's no need for that kind of solidarity over there, right? Like, over here, that's born out of a need. That's what that is. It's not born out of like, it's born out of this thing that there was a point in time, and I'm not saying that point in time is now, but there
No,
was a
but
point
I remember
in
when
which
I was a kid,
we were able
it's
to
an
do that.
acknowledgement. I see you. I recognize you. We are team. I don't want to say oppressed, but we are the same.
Well,
We
what
know
I
what's
mean,
going on.
yeah, and there's also an undeniable like, if something goes down here, you and I, we're together. We cool, right? It's like it's all this stuff that goes unspoken. The like, if something goes down, I'll find you, you find me, we'll get out of here together. You know what I mean? Like it's an automatic kind of solidarity born out of need. What's interesting is that I do find the opposite happens here too, though, right? I will meet cats from Jamaica or from other places that are just the ship dropped them off at a different place from Africa, right? And when they see me here, they'll do the nod because here it's necessary for them, or it's in the culture. That's what I mean. Like it's not real. Like all this stuff is enculturated. Like and it automatically like you come here and you lose all your whiteness and become American. You lose all your wherever you come from, become black in a weird way. And then when you go over there, you lose all that. You lose this other thing and just become a person again. And it's almost automatic. It's really weird. It really is weird. Anyway, let's get back to our lovely vacations and not go
All
down
right,
this
I
road.
got one other I thought
Yeah.
funny cocaine story.
Yeah.
I just gave it away. It's that we took a tour. Not ATVs. I think they're called UTVs, ultimate terrain vehicles. I don't know. Either way, they're an ATV with a roll bar cage, so you don't need to wear a helmet. And as the guy's telling us where we're going to be driving on the island, because you just take it and go, he said Lydia was excited because the last time she was there, she did not get to go to the natural pool where it's an inland sea pool where the waves crash in and made a pool, but it's blocked up. Either way, because it was lowered and her dad has ALS and didn't want to, like, all right, Dad, you stay up top. We're all going down to have fun. So she was excited to go visit that pool. Well, we're getting the guy, the like, okay, you're going to go here, 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 here. And she's like, what about the inland pool? He's like, oh, it's closed. There was a boat crashed into it and there was diesel fuel on the surface of the lagoon. So they're trying to clean that. And the boat that crashed was bringing cocaine to the island. So there were bricks of cocaine and the government is embarrassed by that. And I just thought that was fucking hilarious because it happened the day after I got offered cocaine. So a drug smuggling boat crashed against the rocks and ruined one of the nature spots on the tour.
That's funny.
He said they're pretty sure the cocaine is gone, but they're still trying to get rid of some of the diesel. So
that's hilarious. I mean, it's funny. What leads me to think about why that guy asked you if you wanted some coke is I think because I met a lot of people who I met half the Americans I met weren't potheads in any way, shape, or form. But they were going to Amsterdam and they were all going to get high as fuck because it's totally legal and they can do it there. And then they're going to go back to the States and not do it again. And
that's exactly what I did. The 2 times I've been,
right.
Well, when I visited Amsterdam twice, I don't smoke pot here. And not for any other reason that I just don't. I'm not against it. I think it should be legal. But when I was there, I'm like, when in Rome. Right. And it was fantastic. Yeah. And that was the other reason I haven't done it. Now, maybe in Colorado, I would smoke pot because they're starting to, with legalization, you get your shit together. It's not just buying dirt weed or oregano from some fuck bottom that is trying to just make a buck. They gave me a menu in Amsterdam and they said, what kind of high do you want? And I said, well, I'm going to go get on an airplane. And they said, oh, you want to feel good, get giggly and fall asleep. And I said, absolutely. And that's exactly what happened and for $7, there were 5 of us, I think. We got a joint as thick as a cigar and longer than a cigar. And like I said, $7 and we all took hits off it. And I got so stoned. This is the most stoned thought I've ever had in my life is when we left to walk back to the train to go to the airport. We were crossing the street and I saw a car coming at us. And I just sort of went, I could dodge that. And that was the only thought I had was not, oh, I better get out of the way. It's like, I could dodge that. But that was sort of a drunk accent there. It was more of a giggly, like, I could dodge that. I don't remember, but I just remember having that clear thought of, and then after I had the thought, I'm like, oh, this is how people get in trouble with drugs.
But
I highly recommend Amsterdam to anybody that doesn't get stoned
right.
because it is wonderful. The coffee shops, you go in, you have a nice hot chocolate, you get a buzz, and it's right next to the red light district. So you get to walk around and like window shop. And like every time I was in Japan dealing with the Filipino prostitutes that were just so gorgeous. I've always been in a relationship when I went the 2 times I went to Amsterdam. I'm just like I said, window shopping, going, oh, I would spend so much money on you. I would. It would be a waste of 30 seconds. I mean, for 30 seconds of my life, but still, I would do it. I just to say I did, just to.
It'd be the best 30 seconds of my life.
Yeah, I would disappoint her so hard. She'd like, well, at least I got paid. I mean,
oh, that's funny. Yeah, so that's what you do. You get high, go to the red light district. I mean, I wonder though. I wonder if cocaine is the same for people in Aruba. You know what I mean? I wonder if people
it's right
are
next to
more
South America. I mean,
likely.
it's 30
Right.
miles, 29 miles from Venezuela. You look at it on a map and
Oh, so
you
it's really
actively
just a
have the
hub.
thought saying, how is Venezuela not just sent a ship over and said, I'm taking over the island? Because they absolutely could.
I mean, they probably make a lot of money selling tourist cocaine.
It's closer. Aruba is closer to Venezuela than Cuba is closer to the Florida Keys. That's how close it is.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Huh. Wow. All right. Well, that's interesting enough. I think that
Well,
all
get
the
back.
people
So
who are
I've been
still
doing all the
here,
talking. You went on a musical tour. You were who were you
they
playing with?
did. I was playing with Bruce Katz, who is a man. That cat play the organ and the piano. He is remarkably good. Um, Giles Robson, who sings and plays the hell out of the harmonica, and it was their band essentially. It's the Bruce Katz band featuring Giles Robson. But I was there. Aaron Lieberman was on guitar. It's great. Liviu Pop was on drums. He's fantastic. It was a really fun group. And again, I have the same feeling. Like
How many
when
dates? Quick. How many? I mean, you told me the
well,
how many?
we did 5 or 6. I don't know. It all turns into one big gig after a while because we
It
played the
does,
same
but
places. Like
I'm
we
sorry
played
to
one
interrupt again. But
festival.
how does that become profitable? If you're, I mean, each gig must pay pretty well in order to
Yeah.
fly people there. I mean, you'd
Well,
think you'd have to do a tour to break. Like, okay, the first
it's
5 gigs pay for the airfare, the second 5 pay for the hotels,
this
and
is
then
it was their festivals. So we didn't do any gigs really. I mean, we did one gig, but the one gig we did was in a 250 seat theater. You know what I mean? It was actually like it's fascinating. Not that anybody cares about these little details, but it was modular, built in the 50s. Looked like some shit that was on Star Trek, where like you had 250 seats, and they would all just fold up and then lower into the floor, and then the stage would go. They had a curtain on the stage, so the stage could hold a small group, or you could pull the stage all the way back, and it would literally hold 2 symphony orchestras, right? So you could do all kinds of plays with stuff, and then you could, with the 250 seat thing there's a wall behind it. Then that wall folds back into another wall and it opens up to hold 1,500 people. But every time they do it, it looks like the exact theater that holds the exact amount of people that are in there. So you got 200 tickets, they have a 200 seat theater, it's packed.
I did a
Right? It's
comedy show like
fucking
that once
incredible.
where the stage, it was a theater, but the stage was so big that it had several curtains. And what they did is they dropped the main curtain between the stage and the audience, and then the back curtain between the stage and the wall. And I think there were only 100 people in attendance. So they set the tables on the stage. So instead of having this big open theater with, everybody came up on the stage, and it felt like an intimate crowd because it was.
Amazing. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating what they did. That show was great. I got to play with a handful of people that we talk about later, but yeah, we didn't do any gigs, right? We just did festivals. So
those are gigs, they count.
Yeah, but I mean, what I mean is like they do pay a lot, and they'll cover your hotels, and they'll cover.
Right.
They may not like. So there was a handful of days where I imagine the band leaders had to cover our expenses, but I think that what they took home from the festivals probably made it balance out. You know what I mean? That's my guess. I don't know, right? Like, I know ultimately as a leader for me, oftentimes we'll take the hit. Like, Katie and I'll take a hit and make sure everybody else gets paid. We all get hotels and everybody gets fed, and many people get paid, right? And in the earlier days, we didn't get paid, right? So I could see doing a festival in which, as a leader, you might break even, but everybody else gets paid, right? Like, I could see that as being a possibility. That's not, I don't think that's what happened here, but I could see how that, for like, if I wanted to do a solo tour by myself, that's probably how it would go. You know what I mean?
The way
All
I
the
look
money
at it,
would go into the
I
expenses.
always look at gigs as, am I going into the red? If not, fine. If I'm breaking even, depends on it. Like, but the exposure can be what's important. So if you're doing a festival for the band leader, it's exposure. Oh, this guy, like you said, it's what has he done? Oh, well, look at the resume. He's done all these
Right.
festivals.
Absolutely. What's weird though, and again, what's weird, and this is one of the things that I found to be radically different over there. Again, it's the kind of thing that like people will tell you about it all the time and you'll read about it all the time, but then when you experience it, you go, oh, it's just a different thing, you know? Over there, musicians, I would like to say artists at all, right? I think is the correct term. But I don't know if I'm using it correctly, so I'll just say musicians. I don't know if all artists get treated the same. I can't speak to that, right? But musicians, it's a different thing. It's just different, right? It's like you're a human being, you know? And it sounds funny to say because people here seem to worship musicians and artists and stuff, but it's not true. They worship fame and they worship fame at a high level. And some people worship talent that they've been exposed to. But the kind of
I have yet
exposure,
to discover that. I just was on a
well,
Twitter feed. They said, what was the defining? It was like, what happened to you that made you realize your job sucked? And my response was, when I realized ability doesn't matter.
right, right. I mean, but to a degree, it is the cheapest thing you own in this industry. You know what I mean? Like, talent is the cheapest thing you own, you know? And especially in a place where the bar, the difference between the people at the top and the people at the bottom economically is so extreme, right? Even in the art world, right? Like, the people, the top pop star versus the person singing in a coffee shop, right? Making a living, right? Both of them making a living, right? The differential between those two things is so high, you know what I mean? that I would imagine the psychological barriers alone are intense, right?
I mean, it's no different than the CEO and the cashier at Walmart. We're talking about
Right. But is
the
the
1%.
cashier right? I mean, but that's what I mean. But I feel like over there, and again, I was a tourist. I was only there for a week or so. But what I saw was average ordinary people, right? Like, average ordinary people in the Czech Republic would see us on the street and say, "Hey, you guys are really good." And I would say, "Oh, thank you." And then we could ask them if they could recommend a place to eat because we didn't
Or for
know,
pot, as you said.
right? Or for pot. And they would say, "Oh, you just go right down there. You'll love it. It's really great." And there was none of this like weird, like, "Oh, you guys are amazing." There wasn't that. It wasn't like some weird sycophant type thing. It was just like, wow, I have a lot of respect for what you do. You're really, that's cool. And in the way that they seem to understand the amount of work it takes to become good at something, right? Whether or not they liked your music or hated your music, they understand what it takes to become that and they appreciate it somehow. I'm trying, again, I'm reverse engineering the truth here. I don't know why they are that way. Like, I really don't.
I think
So I'm
it's because they're just
trying to make it make sense in my head,
I think
You know
it's
what I
just because
mean?
they're an older society. I mean, they're more established. I think they're more mature. I think that's
Yeah,
all it is. It's the same way Europe handles religion versus the way America handles religion. It's the same way
right.
Europe handles race as the way America. I mean, they've been
I
there.
mean,
They
uh,
went through the Inquisition, so they don't need
yes,
Southern Baptists thumping their chest and talking about Jesus. Or I
but
mean,
I mean, but that's actually one of the things that I found most interesting there is that they have buildings there that took 700 years to build, you know, and have been standing for another 300 years, or not 700, but maybe took 500 years to build and have been standing for 300 or 400 years, right? Like they have buildings that took longer to build than we've been a country and have been standing for longer than we've been a country after they were built, right? And they were built by people. Somebody started a project that in the age of apprentices and family businesses and shit like that, right? People started projects that their great grandchildren finished. You know what I mean? Like if you were a king or an emperor in one time, you started something so that a king 6 generations from you would have something cool. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Right? Like it's a different way of thinking, right?
Well, now if you're
It's
not
just a
Instagram
different
famous
thing.
overnight, you're nobody.
Right. And there's something to be said for that. Like the idea of some kind of you're a link in a chain. You're part of a continuous thread that is named this family, right? And what are you doing today that is setting up your kids, not just your kids, right? Everybody sets their kids up or tries their best to, but we're talking about people who thought generations and generations into the future. You know what I mean? And again, maybe I'm just reverse engineering the truth, and that's not at all what they were doing. It's just what happened, right? And maybe it was just a byproduct of the fact that they didn't have fucking power tools, and so shit just took a long time, right? Maybe they were all just egomaniacal shitheads who went, "Haha! When this castle is finished in 1,000 years, it'll be me who they said started, and I will be the king that lasts forever." So maybe, like, who knows? I
I
don't know
would
what the
actually
reasoning
lean toward that
was,
because I don't think humanity changes all that much.
right?
But it
Right,
doesn't
but
take away anything from what I said, which is at some point you're just older and more mature. And as a
yes,
culture,
absolutely,
they've been around longer
yeah.
and they've lived through all the shit we're going through.
Yeah, and it really is fascinating. And again, I can't even explain it enough to go somewhere where the race thing is not just an ever present thing, right? Like even when we're joking in the beginning of the podcast, you're like, "Hi, I'm Nathan. I'm a white cracker," and I'm like, like it's just what we do, right? Like if you like, I have the distinct sense, and again, I don't know this because I haven't lived there, right? But I have the distinct sense that if we did this same podcast over there, that wouldn't be a thing that would somehow be necessary or even
Yeah.
amusing to people. But over here, it's like, oh, that's funny. Or then some people, it's a trigger. Oh, why is he always got to bring up race, right? Like, but it has like
Or even
there's
the
a
worst trigger, why do they
story,
have to make fun of race? Why can't they acknowledge and
right?
respect?
Right. Like but it's like in psychology, like in therapy, one of the things that it seems like I'm saying this not because I've been to therapy, because I know therapists who always try to therapize me.
I've been to therapy.
Um, right. And maybe I should be in therapy. Just my fear of actually knowing that it's all my fault probably stops me. Um,
I mean, as
but,
long as you're aware, that's all that
but
matters.
no, but
First
like
step.
but one of the things that I find is that it often comes to stories, right? We attach stories to inanimate objects and inanimate situations, right? Like I dated a woman once who would never finish all her food. And I was like, you're gonna leave that like quarter of a piece of salmon there? Like, And she's like, oh, you're like my father, always trying to make me clean my plate. I grew up and he would make me. And I was like, this just has nothing to do with me. I was like, okay,
Right.
this is not me at all. This is her attaching a story. So now she never finishes her food.
It's also the example
right?
you just gave, salmon, and fish is fucking gross. So why would anyone
That's funny.
start, much
Yes,
less finish
it's
that?
true. Okay, so we're gonna leave that whole quarter of an avocado there. You know what I
Why would
mean?
anyone not finish an avocado?
Right,
Those are
exactly.
delicious.
Exactly. But I noticed her do that with everything. Like she would eat 2/3 to 3/4 of whatever it was, even if it was delicious. Like she'd leave a quarter of the cheesecake. I'm like, right, like, and I was like, oh, right, that story is powerful in her head. This is her standing up for like, fuck you, dad. I'll do what I
Yeah.
want. You know what I mean? It's her establishing her independence, and maybe that's important, right? It's, as long as it doesn't, as long as she's not like, I can't believe you ate all your food, which she never said that to me. Like she never projected her stuff onto me. It was, and I was like, well, I'll just never tell you that. I'll just finish it for you. You want to leave that quarter piece of cheesecake? Why, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
I'll clean it for you. Don't worry, babe. I got it. You know
See,
what
but
I
that,
mean?
what you just said is really insightful, interesting, or, I mean, because projecting our own bullshit onto others is what we
all
do
do.
so often. And it's one of
Right.
those things that I try and recognize and not do constantly. I'm like, okay, that's that person. I'm me. Cool. As long as no one's
Right.
getting hurt. But I mean, it is a nonstop
Yes. I mean,
existence of judgment, because their way, everyone's way is the best for them, and therefore projection and judgment. And
yes. And here's what I feel like generally happens with the stories that we create, right? It's what I've been accusing myself of half this talk, right? We reverse engineer the truth, right? We find something that works for us, and then we just reverse engineer that to be what is the truth.
Yeah.
And then we create a system that supports that belief system, and we call that our life. Right, like that's essentially what we do. Whether you can take it to the macro and call it a country, but you can take it down to a family, right? You reverse engineer the truth, and you create this thing inside your thing that you know what I mean.
Or we could do what I don't want to do, and I hate that I'm going to bring this up, and I apologize, but it literally is what evangelicals have done with Trump. I love Jesus. I follow the teachings of Jesus. Oh, now I worship a man that is against everything Jesus ever said, but I'm going to pretend to champion him as holy. Like Major Marjorie Taylor Greene posted on Instagram this past week a picture of her reading the Bible with the caption of, I remember the first time I read the Bible, I find so much. It's like, oh, fuck you. Nothing you said, none of your actions, zero, except for maybe the asshole ones where it talks about punishment and fuck, like the reconcile themselves with any of the teachings of Jesus. So it's just interesting. It's they say they love the Bible. Everything they say and do is anti Jesus's teachings, but somehow they make it work because they're doing it, so it's okay, and they can find justification. And I don't want to talk politics anymore, but that was the first thing I thought of.
But I feel like it's because we live in a world today that has just lost its mind, right? Again, we can talk about this for like 13 seconds.
I do have two things that I wanted to talk about too. We're just meandering, which is fine. But I did have a couple things to talk about.
Two things. Let's talk about your things. Let's
do your 13 seconds. I'll start a stopwatch.
All right. You know that band Brass Against, the woman who beat on the audience.
That video was fantastic.
Dude, so I know her, right? We used to play together all the time in the city. Like she used to be a New York person. Like we chilled, we hung out, we played together all the time. Like I know her. We're not friends now because we haven't seen each other in years, but she was a friend, right?
Yeah.
And that is perfectly in line with her. It was perfectly in line with her character. Like she's not a bad person. She's not a shock artist. Like what they're saying, that's not what she is. She's just a person who.
I didn't get the sense she was a shock artist. I got the sense that she didn't give a fuck. She just had to go to the bathroom really bad, and she said, "Fuck it, let's make a show out of this."
Right, but it's also very planned. Like you see the beginning of the video, she's like, I'm gonna piss on some motherfucker. No, like she
Yeah.
like, and then the guy that they were talking to, it was all communicated ahead of time. He had a little
Yeah.
camera, a little thing on his head.
Yep.
Like it wasn't like he wasn't being abused somehow
Oh,
or
and he
anything
seemed to
like that.
enjoy the shit out of it.
I mean, if she moaned a couple of times, he could have just pretended he was being squirted on. What's the fucking difference?
Anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, the band Brass
Right.
Against, Google Daytona. This is what I found
I
interesting
mean,
is after that, I'm going to get this partially wrong, but the truth is in here somewhere. I guess they were playing a festival and they may have been on a speedway. I'm not positive, but there was a statement released by either NASCAR or someone that owns a bunch of speedway, something like that, that said, we will not allow this band to play on our properties ever again. And I'm like, how interesting. You guys allowed Confederate flags to be flown at your races forever until this year. But one woman with a very nice butt exposes that butt on stage. That's all I saw because she turns away. I didn't see, but I mean, she seems to have a pretty good body. And pees on a guy who enjoys getting peed on stage
right.
and is
States'
very
rights, man.
celebratory of the
Isn't that
fact.
his right? Isn't that his right to be peed on if he wants to
Exactly.
be?
And then boom, they will never play on our properties again. I'm like, that's
All
just
right.
fascinating that the symbol of Confederacy,
Yeah,
decades of
rebellion.
being
Well, I
flown.
mean, listen, I'm gonna make a prediction. She's about to be world famous.
She
She
already
already
is.
is,
That thing
but she's
blew up.
but it's about to be like huge. Like she's gonna become a star, is my guess. And in 5 years, nobody's gonna remember
I mean,
because
God,
by
I
the
hope
same
so, because
token,
if Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian can be completely devoid of any talent, anything interesting to say, complete vacuums of personality, and be insanely wealthy and famous for fuck tapes, she has a voice. I watched the video. I didn't just fast forward to the P. I watched. I'm like, this is actually
oh, she can sing.
yeah. I
She's
mean,
got a
so
vibe,
not only
man.
can
She's
she
got
can
a
sing,
vibe.
she's got
You got one,
she
you
can
know?
hold
Yeah.
a bladder for a good long set. I mean, she actually has talent. So this should make her. It's all. And I said this should make her famous, but it's actually sad that being talented and a talented singer in a unique band that does, horned versions of heavy metal tunes or heavier songs. Like for anybody that doesn't know, they were playing a Rage Against the Machine song with trumpets and saxophone and a trombone. They rearranged. For her to have to pee on someone to get famous is more a sad indictment of our country than anything else. That, hey, here's this unique band. Now,
Right.
here's the singer that peed on someone. Oh my God, now they're
Right.
I feel the same way about the tragedy in Houston, where, and I don't mean this as a joke, and I don't mean this as belittling. The people that died at the festival in Houston, it's tragic. I will say that first. It is absolutely tragic, especially because a couple of them are children. It's horrible. The fact that anyone got injured going to see a music festival, also tragic, horrible, not belittling it. Also, and I'm not saying but, I'm saying also, it is an indictment of us as a society that 50,000 people wanted to go see Travis Scott. It should be one of those things where they just turn on the music, not music, they just turn them on and go, wow, that sucks. Nobody should ever see him live or pay money. It's just the fact that 50,000 people wanted to be there. It speaks to who we are as a society. And I find it sad.
I mean, I know that you're half joking, but you're also half serious. And there's I could see.
I'm more serious than joking, but
no, but I mean, in a certain sense, like I understand, like when you look and you see what the
what's in the zeitgeist, what the kids like.
yeah, right. Like when you see that the level of disconnect, I feel like we just do everything bigger and like the distances get farther, right? Like the distance between what my parents called music and what I call music might be like this. They may not like this thing here.
Right.
And I may have a little bit of resentment for this thing here. Like, whatever, fuck you guys and your old music. Not really. I dig their music, right?
Yeah.
But like the distance is here to here. I feel like the distance between what my grandparents liked and what I like is here. Great grandparents probably here because it's all somehow based on the blues, right? So there's this continuum that connects my music to their music. I feel like modern music, the distance between us and what the 15-year-olds of today like is farther than the distance between us and our grandparents or great grandparents.
And
The
I
distance in the music, like in terms of what I when I was 14, what I listened to versus what they listened to, it doesn't even sound like music. It doesn't even sound like the same thing to me.
and
Do you know what I mean? It's
and the
crazy.
saving grace I feel, and I'll put this out because there are modern bands I like, and I'm going to bring up an example in a second. Actually, not a band, but it's I do not feel, and I wouldn't because I'm trying to self-justify my emotions. I'm trying to reverse engineer how I feel about something. So it's very dangerous. But I do not believe I am, old man yells at cloud over this thing where it's like, this isn't music, because I get it. I remember when Two Live Crew came out and everyone's like, oh, kids these days with Two Live Crew. I'm like, okay, I get it. Everybody hyper
I
reacts
mean,
where, like
I don't
Elvis used to shake
know.
his hips and people freaked out.
Right.
There's a difference. It's a chasm as wide, if not wider, than you just described between the guy in Houston. And I sent you a text this morning, said, hey, before we talk, watch Taylor Swift on Saturday Night Live from this past week. Did you happen to watch it?
Mm-hmm.
I really like Taylor Swift. We've talked about her in the past on this show. She, as a modern artist, whatever she contributes, whatever songwriter she has, they are catchy fucking tunes. And the thing I found so fascinating about her Saturday Night Live performance is how much I enjoyed it, despite how artificial it was. Did you get the sense of that, or should I keep going?
So keep going. I mean, I know
So
what you mean, but
again, I enjoyed her performance on Saturday Night Live. But at the same time as I was enjoying it, I was in my head thinking, this is so contrived. When she walked out, it's like I could almost, her body language to me suggested, this is where I have the guitar in front. This is where I put it behind me because it looks cool. This is where I pull it back out. This is where I step back and shake my hair. None of it felt organic. It felt like I don't want to say bad rehearsal, because say there's a play, say you're in a play, you rehearse that play so much that you've said the words a million times to the point where they are so deeply ingrained in you, they become natural again. The first time you say the words, you're like, the butler must have murdered the aristocrat. And then you get to a point where you're like halfway through, you're like, the butler must have, you're not looking at it, but you're still sort of and then you get to the point where they sound natural again because they're so deeply ingrained. We're like, oh, the butler must have. She felt like she was in that middle ground where she knew she had to shake her head here, but she didn't do it enough times to that it looked and felt organic, where it still looked like she's like, oh, step back, shake your head. Okay, do your shoulder, like it all. But again, I'm picking on her, but I still enjoyed the shit out of the performance. And I found that fascinating that I could, because normally I would discount something like that. I think that speaks to how good she is, because normally I would see something that, again, I use the word contrived and I would dismiss it outright. I didn't, because I was enjoying the song and the melody and the lyrics. I'm like, this is a catchy fucking song. So again, this speaks to me not being so out of touch with the youth of today, where I'm like, the kids these days with their Travis Scott. There are good new artists out there. I stumble across them. I enjoy them.
But I mean, but when you mentioned Two Live Crew, that actually snapped me back to reality for a second, because the difference between Two Live Crew and Sam Cooke, pretty far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I could see how my grandparents could listen to Two Live Crew and not think that sounded like music.
I don't think it was music, but
I could, but I mean, right? I could see that. I could, when you put it, I was like, oh yeah, like I forgot about all that. Not forgot about it, but like, you know what I mean? Like I could see how maybe the distance isn't as great. It just seems greater because we're becoming the old people and we're not yelling at the clouds, but we're surely looking at them.
Yeah,
like a little bit suspect.
There were artists in the 90s that were great too, at the time of Two Live Crew. It's all a matter of
absolutely
who, like,
and what are we calling great? How are we defining great? Right? Is great music the only kind of music that can make an impact? Right? Can you make a statement with really what we would call shitty music? Right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think Two Live Crew is shitty music, but like I think the Two Live Crew made a point. right? Whatever their point was, they were successful at it. So whether or not we think it rises to the heights of what somebody else was doing is almost irrelevant, right? Same thing, like if we look at like art from not a position of talent, but from a position of impact, right? What Sophia did in Brass Against, that's gonna have an impact. Whether or
Well,
not it took talent, I mean it because it is like to a degree when we were younger, right? We're from the Madonna generation, kind of, right? And what Madonna would do almost consistently is take a thermometer, shove it up the ass of the public, and go, you guys are at 98.4. I'll go to 99. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And she just went to 99 and she was at a constant 99. And it was always just hot enough for us to be like, oh, a little hot in here, but not so much for us to go, what the fuck? Now the old folks were going, what the fuck? But
right.
we were like, oh, that's just kind of whatever. And it's racy. And if you take the temperature of the public today, it's where it is. And what Sophia did is just a little bit above that. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
don't know that peeing on someone's face is a little above.
dude,
I mean,
have
because
you
also Gigi Allen did that shit in the 90s, only he was throwing shit
absolutely?
on stage.
I
So,
mean,
but
literally.
that
I
was
mean,
his
many
nonstop. It was,
people
ooh,
did
when's
it.
he going to do it during the show?
Right. And right. But I mean, what I mean is like, full well, like, this is a fact that we're going to get to the point where people are live streaming their lives. Famous people are going to start live
Mhm.
streaming their lives.
Well, we're
And
there
they're,
for the
and
most
they're
part.
no, but they're going to start live streaming real fights
Hmm.
and sex and like fucking, farting, fighting, all of it. It's just going to be 24 hours. You want to see, just tune into Megan Thee Stallion channel, tune into this channel. You're going to turn on that person's channel and you're just going to have access to their life whenever you want it, whether they're
Yeah, that sounds
fucking or
horrible. I
fighting or
would
doing this.
never.
But that that's where we're going. Like,
Yeah.
that that's going to be a thing, right? You're aware, like, because you can follow. I used to ask myself, how do science fiction writers know? How do they get this shit so fucking right? Right? Like, how did they know that this was going to happen? That we'd be holding these little phones in our hands and, you know what I mean, watching TVs the size of our fucking walls and shit. Like, did they just guess it and we just lived into the script they wrote? Or did they actually figure it out? And then I talked to an English teacher, and what she said was, oh, well, they just start with a simple question. If this were to continue, what would happen? And so, right. And it's just that question. You follow that line. If I follow the line of Instagram and the Grammys now being basically a peep show, like what would have been in 1985 New York Times Square, a quarter peep show, is now what we call the Grammys.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, right, like, what do you do with that? Right. Like, that's where we're going. Like, you can see where this is headed. The clothes are going to get skimpier and skimpier and skimpier until somebody has the balls to actually just go naked, like the emperor has no clothes,
Or
right?
the other
And then,
direction until someone shows up in a burqa because it's like,
right,
ooh, what's under there? Like, I
right,
didn't know she was Muslim. She's not. Ooh, like
right, yeah, right. Like, but we're going to go to the extremes, and so
we
Sophia
already have.
proved
Rose
that.
McGowan, when she was dating Marilyn Manson, showed up in the chain link, the whatever
Right,
she showed up basically naked.
right. This is
I
what,
mean,
right, like, and we've normalized it, and this is ultimately what the conservatives are afraid of. This is ultimately what their fear is that, like, if we let go of the reins anymore, can you see, look at what's happening now? A woman's about to be made famous for emptying her bladder on another man, on a man's face, willingly in front of people, knowing full well that that shit's going to go viral. That guy will also be famous. He might write a book. Become like, here you are writing a book. I saw that thing that you sent me, by the way. Fucking hilarious. Trigger warnings.
oh
Awesome.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that I
So,
just
right.
I got a couple more great reviews on the book since whatever,
Yeah.
but one of them was in the review was a link to what I sent you, which was it's a website to anyone watching, listening. I'll put it on at the end
Yeah.
that it basically takes books And mine was in there that talks about the trigger warnings in that book for anybody if they want to, as they're, like, ooh, should I read this book? Let's click here to make sure that I'm safe. It's a safe, fascinating. It's
One of the
fascinating.
trigger warnings is black main character, gay sub character. Like, that's a trigger warning. That
maybe it's for conservatives. Who knows?
Right, there's a black guy in this book. Be warned. Keep your wallet close because there's a black dude.
I actually think what you're talking about, I think they broke it down twice, wasn't there a trigger warning section and an empowering section? I do believe there was
I don't know.
This has a black lead character and a gay person in it, except there are no gay people in the book. There's just, there is one gay person. I'm sorry. Right. And he does something positive. So I think the website breaks things down by trigger warnings and empowering, and the black lead character. And this is what I found interesting is the lead, most important character in the book is a woman, is a female lead character. Right. And that didn't get noticed, like, hey, empowering woman character. So I thought that was interesting.
Let me see. Let me pull it up.
Let's change to our last topic because we've been talking for a while.
It says representation, black main character, gay side character. Right, but why? Right, why didn't they put that the woman is really the main character and the black person is really her? Like, that's partner. Funny. Like, it's weird. Right, he's our partner.
It's not like this. It's she's the main. Right. They're partners, so it's
right. But like,
women get no credit.
I know, man. Bitches get.
Sorry, ladies. I tried.
Yeah, edit that part out where I said that.
I talked over you so no one could hear it.
It's good. All right. Anyway, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, let's start hitting our last topic because I just thought we could have talked about this the entire hour. I thought it was really fascinating. I sent you an article a couple of days ago. I'm looking at my notes quick. An MMA fighter born in America, Taiwanese parents.
Yeah, I saw that.
Kai Wu, I think his name is. Khai, so I think that's Kai Wu. It was at a tea shop in, I believe, San Francisco. Tea, drinking tea. And a drunk white guy wanders in demanding sushi of the owner. And the owner's trying to explain, we don't have sushi here. And the drunk white guy's like, fuck, you're Asian. Come on there. Where's the sushi? And eventually he says something even more like that's racist assumption. You're Asian, you should have sushi. You should be Japanese. And I believe it's a Taiwanese tea place. Not positive. I think I tried looking that up. Anyway, so at one point he finally goes, you don't even speak English. He's been speaking English with this tea. And this is enough for the MMA fighter who steps up, knowing full well that he's an MMA fighter and he can take this guy down, but he's very calm and he talks to the guy reasonably and says, let's step outside, not come on, take it outside. It's let's get out of this restaurant with our families. And they have a conversation. But to me, the most important thing about the video and the article was they put the blur effect over the white guy before releasing it to the public. And the guy who did it said, yeah, this guy's drunk. This could be the worst day of his life. Could he be an out and out racist? Yes, absolutely. Did I want to put it out there like, fuck this guy, let's dox him, let's find his name, let's get him fired from his job, let's ruin his life? No. He wanted to expose what happens to Asian people, like, hey, this is what we deal with, these assumptions, this racism, but I'm not going to ruin this guy's life in order to, and this is what we need more of in society. Let's just get out our phone and film it and put it out there. And that is what I thought was so fantastic, because everybody praised the MMA fighter for being so calm and relaxed. And part of that comes with power. It comes with knowing I am a very strong person. I can handle myself. I'm not worried about this guy. I don't have to front like, fuck you, I'll kick your ass. I loved everything about it. But to me, the most important thing was I would love to see a sea change where instead of just filming everything and putting it out there, we dial it back a little. We show just a little restraint. Was the guy a piece of shit? Sure, absolutely. In that video, is he a full-time racist? Maybe. Is he a casual, I'm confused, I don't know anything about Asians racist? Probably. Should he have his life ruined for being stupid and ignorant? I don't know. I don't think so. He wasn't there using racial slurs or upending tables. Like, that to me is like, if he had been, then maybe sure, fucking ruin his life. I don't care. But he was just a confused, dumb guy, and we're all dumb in our own way. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I just thought that was fantastic that they took the time to blur this guy's identity and not ruin his life as much as he was in the wrong for being just dumb and drunk.
Yeah, I'll say this. because I agree with you 100%. I think it's kind of ridiculous to ruin somebody's life. Because I think that the people who know who that guy is, people are going to see that video and they're going to know who that guy is. And he's going
Yeah.
to know who he is. And his friends are going to know who he is. And everybody's going to know. And they might have a talking with him, be like, dude, like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell are you
Hopefully.
doing? You know what I mean? Right? Like, theoretically, that's a thing that could happen. What I will say, though, is that, and this isn't just with racism, but racism exists and is allowed to persist, not because of racists, but largely because the people who are tasked with educating the racists, who show the most compassion for them, are the people being subjected to their bullshit, right? It's like, and this is a thing, again, this is somewhat anecdotal, I suppose, but like, I see black people, I see women, I see all kinds of people constantly
I see
trying
dead
to,
people.
right.
Sorry.
But like I see, but you know what I mean? Like the Asian, the guy who's being assaulted has to be the bigger person in the situation, right? Like he is caring for the guy who is whose unsophisticated nature is affecting his life, right? Like we can all say everybody suffers, right? Everybody suffers, right? There's no doubt about it. Rich white folks, poor white folks, black folks, everybody, all people suffer, right? But when your suffering becomes my problem, that's an issue for me, right? Like the woman I was dating. If she doesn't want to eat the rest of the food because she's going to attach a story to it, that's her business.
You,
As long as she's not mad at me for finishing my food, I don't really give a fuck. That's her life, right? But
you know
like
what you make me
this,
think of is
mhm.
the beginning of Sticks and Stones. Anybody that hasn't watched it should absolutely watch it. I think it's fantastic. But he talks about Dave Chappelle talks about Anthony Bourdain committing suicide, and then the
Right,
buddy he and I'm not going to give it away, but
right.
that's exactly what you made me think of. Is like never even crossed his mind. Maybe it should have, or whatever. It was like because he talks about Anthony Bourdain living this great life, and then but we didn't know he was suffering inside.
Right. Yeah, like
Everybody
everybody,
suffers.
right? Everybody suffers, and that's the truth of it. But so maybe this guy drinks a lot because he has a shitty life, right? And maybe he's got money, maybe he doesn't. Maybe his wife
Or
is great,
maybe it
maybe
was
she's
just the
cheating, or
worst day of his
maybe
life, or
right,
maybe
and
he,
maybe he just had right, maybe he just
yeah.
had a bad day. Whatever it is, his suffering became somebody else's problem. And in that moment, I do find it fascinating where like we see instances where the person who's being stripped of their humanity by someone else shows more humanity than the other person. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And
Yep.
it is often I don't like these terms victim and victimizer. I don't like those terms. I think they're polarizing and weird in disenfranchising ways for both people, arguably. Like it strips both parties of their humanity for a little bit, but like maybe and subject and subjugator, like none of them seem to work, but like but when you have a situation with two people and one person is the aggressor and the person being aggressed upon, if that's a proper use of the word, is somehow having to show infinitely more humanity in the face of that kind of not violence, but violence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
like, fuck, dude, like
not
that's
violence,
just
but
right. But you know what I mean? Like
I'm
the
thinking of
attack.
a
You know what
speech
I
Bill Maher
mean?
gave a couple weeks ago, how we're changing
Oh,
the
right. The term of violence. Right.
yeah.
But that's what I mean. But it is a kind of violence. It's the kind of thing that like, and here's where, and this is again where this is where all the racist shit that happens is there's an assumption, right? Like I always take it back to Trayvon Martin, where like there's an assumption that Zimmerman could have been afraid for his life, and everybody understands that. But nobody seems to think that Trayvon would be afraid that some guy stalked him in a car. So I mean, the guy must have been driving 5 miles an hour right behind him in a car.
Yeah.
I mean, like the guy stalked him in a car from the
It's
store
like
all the way. And even if he did
the
steal a Snickers bar, like what up? Like I don't even know that he did or didn't, but like seriously. And then the guy follows him and
the jury was able to buy that Zimmerman feared for his life, completely neglecting to understand that Zimmerman put himself in that position 100%.
And more than that maybe Trayvon was afraid for his life.
Absolutely.
Like, it just never seems to cross anyone's mind that Trayvon could have been stalked by this guy, weirded out, ducked behind a house, and the guy gets out, starts following him, and he's like, there's some armed guy fucking chasing me. Like, like we do know, like somehow the idea that he could be afraid is ridiculous. Because here's the thing. If a couple of Black folks walked into a coffee shop and demanded a pork roll, egg and cheese sandwich, right? I think it's a typical white food.
I'm going to say chicken, but okay, that's just me being racist.
No, but but like they wanted some like typical white food, right? Like Taylor ham, egg and cheese or some shit, right? That's like Jersey white folk food. I don't know that people eat that shit all across the country. But like, and then somebody said, and they were drunk, and it was like, we don't have that here. This is a coffee shop, sir. Hey, you're white folks. Of course you have Taylor ham, egg and cheese sandwiches. And like the idea that people would extend to them the same. I haven't ever seen anyone extend to those two people that humanity, right? Because
I can. You're flashing back. I don't want to promote the book because I don't want it to get any sales, so I'm not even going to say the author. But I don't know if you remember this. I read a book when we lived together by a Black author who did not seem to understand his own hypocrisy. I remember it opened with a white kid rode his bike into my neighborhood, so we were throwing rocks at him because of course we did, because he's a white kid riding his bike. What the fuck is he thinking? But man, fucking those guys that killed that guy at Howard Beach, what the fuck is wrong? These racists. I'm like, hello. And then later in the book, he talks about how a big box store opened up in his neighborhood. Like, okay, we're going to grow the economy. He's like, man, we fucking stole everything we could from there because fuck those guys paying us slave wages. And then it went out of business, destroying I was like, I mean, he would say these things without any. I just remember reading the book, going, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Right. There is an inability to see one's self objectively, but what it comes down to for me is that like it bothers me on a certain level. Like, and I mean this seriously. Like, it bothers me on a certain level that I am expected to see white people's humanity even in the face of their racism, I'm supposed to see their humanity, right? That Kyle Rittenhouse thing, he's crying and crying and crying. It's like, it's to show his humanity. And at that point, we can all see, yes, he's a young boy. Yes, he was misled. Yes, he was all these things.
It's the same thing as Zimmerman. Yes, he was afraid in that moment. He actively put himself in that moment, but 100%.
But also, when we see a young Black child who grew up in gangs and all this other stuff and just learned this way of being, and somebody does something to him and he's 16 years old or 17 years old and he has a gun and he takes it across state lines and goes somewhere and shoots somebody because of some perceived thing in his mind, he thinks he's doing right. Nobody gives that kid the kind of humanity, you know what I mean? That kind of the treatment, you know what I mean? And
I'm not made me think of that fucking Matthew McConaughey movie. Now picture.
Oh, right. But that's what I mean. There's something to be said there where we don't see that kid's humanity. Do I think that he deserves a pass? Do I think he deserves a pass if he goes into a neighborhood and shoots another gang member for something? No. I don't think he deserves a pass. I think he deserves to go to jail and get some kind of therapy and maybe come out and be a better person. Do I think Kyle Rittenhouse deserves a pass and to be made a hero? It's like there's this thing in which like white people are not ever forced to confront, not ever, it would be ridiculous to say it that way, but white people by at large are not forced to confront the foolishness that they do, right? Yeah. You are forced to confront Kyle Rittenhouse's foolishness, but he himself gets to literally, he'll re-engineer the truth. He knows what happened that night. He knows.
There's a meme going around. It's a meme. It looks like our Zoom screen now. It's two pictures of him back to back. In one, he's in a bar laughing, and the shirt says something like, the shirt is very blatant saying, I wish I could remember, but I should Google it. But either way, he's laughing and drinking in a bar, and it says, the face you have when you're telling your buddies you killed someone. And then the other side is him in court, like, it's like the face you make when you're in court. It's like, he was absolutely okay with everything he did until he got in front of a jury. And one thing that hasn't been discussed is, I think the whole situation is fucked. Like, he's a dumb kid that took the advice of Fox News and went up there with his gun. Like, if the police aren't going to protect, everybody's in the wrong in that situation. And I don't know how you'll feel about this, but the protesters that are burning and looting shit, fuck them too. Like, I think everybody's in the wrong in that situation.
I'm not but let's just be simple here. Let's just go back to the law. How old was he?
Yeah.
Was it legal?
Yep.
That's it. Like why is it that because of the fact that he was defending himself, which let's say he was.
Yeah.
His
defending himself from a situation he marched into. I'm going to go in here. Now I'm scared. Bang, bang. Fuck you.
And these are the same people who were saying, like, you remember Dr. Laura Schlesinger? Remember her from back in the day? Crazy right-wing woman, right? She would say things like, women would call up and go, well, I went to a bar and I got drunk. And when I was making out with this guy, and then I wanted him to stop, and he didn't, and he made me have sex. And she'd be like, well, you're a whore. Like, what? You're an idiot. Like, you got drunk. What'd you think he wanted when you went out in the backseat of his car and you were both drunk and you're letting him grind all over you? What did you think he wanted? Like, what made you think that it was going to go any differently than it did? And it's your fault and your responsibility. Don't be a fucking dumb twat. And she'd hang up the phone, right? And people would be livid. Because it's like, well, wait a minute.
I kind of like both sides, but I could get being angry, but it also makes me laugh just because I'm a horrible person. Like, holy shit, I can't believe it.
But there's a certain amount of responsibility that we expect people to take for their own personhood, right?
Malcolm Gladwell said the same thing, but only much nicer. When he talked about the Brock Turner case, he said, look, both of them were blackout drunk. It doesn't excuse him from raping her, and it doesn't mean she deserves to get raped. But when I'm not even going to try and, because then cancel culture. And I'm stunned that he did not get a ton of shit for this. But Malcolm Gladwell broke it down great, where he talked about personal responsibility and how no one's talking about alcohol in these situations. They talk about how women should be on guard and men need to behave better, but no one's talking about alcohol. So we don't like personal responsibility on any level.
Right. But here we have a situation where they're going to reframe this to be his personal responsibility. He was exercising personal responsibility as a minor, and his mother drove him across, and she has no accountability. Whereas, like, again, when you see stuff like that, you hear people say, well, we can't try this white guy who killed this black guy in this town because the jury will be mostly black, and then they'll be slanted towards the black guy. So let's move it. We'll issue for a change of venue. And the court goes, yeah, that makes good sense. Does it? And then in the flip side, let's try to get it to go our way. Let's make sure that there's no black people on the jury here. Maybe we should have a change of venue and put into another. No, let's do it this way. Right? Like, it's like those kind of little subtle things, and maybe there's good reason for it. And I'm just looking at the surface, and I don't really understand the law that way. Maybe there's valid reasons for it, but it seems.
No, I think you understand, and I don't think it's that subtle.
I mean, but I think that the laws consistently seem to bend in one direction only, right? They bend in one direction only, and it seems that nobody seems to care, because when we talk about what we've been talking about almost the whole time, like the consistency through this is the reverse engineering the truth, right? We have a situation where we reverse engineer. We figure out what we want to be true. We create a system that supports it, and then we move forward as if that is from this point forward the truth. What that man did when he stopped that guy and he didn't blast him all over and shit like that, it was really nice. And he showed compassion to that person in a way that I would like us all to be able to show compassion towards each other. That's honestly what I think is needed. What scares me is that I feel like it is consistently the again these terms oppressed and oppressor and shit.
No, it
Right?
goes one direction is what you're trying to say.
Right, but it's generally the people who are being who have the boot on their neck saying, "Hey man, listen, I understand why you think you need to have your boot on my neck, but actually there's one on yours too." Right? Like it's the people at the bottom trying, like when they talk about punching down, right? Like I don't like the term when Chappelle's talking about punching down and all this stuff, punching up, punching down. I get it, but here's what it seems like. It seems like when it comes to compassion, that is helping up, right? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the people at the bottom are trying to educate the people at the top to have
Well,
compassion. And it's ridiculous. I find it like insulting in a weird way. I understand that like just because somebody can be an asshole doesn't give me the right to be one. So I still need to do what is morally right for me, regardless of whether or not this person I'm doing it for is an asshole. I get that, but it's still kind of like the Chappelle thing. I'll eat
here,
it,
let
but
me.
you shouldn't have farted on me. You know what I mean?
Here's my thought, and maybe we can try and wrap it up. This goes back to when George Bush Sr. No, sorry, Jr. This is back to when Jr. called North Korea, or I can't, the axis of evil. What was the third one? North Korea, Iran was it? I can't remember who the third one was, but that gave North Korea and the other, it gave them in-house propaganda. This is what America thinks of us. They just showed that clip on a loop, like, oh, this is the president of the United States saying that we're part of the axis of evil. We're horrible people. And the residents of North Korea are like, like David Lee Roth and Hot for Teacher. I don't feel evil. I don't feel tardy. Where I'm going with this is I agree with you 100%. And I understand the frustration. When I look at woke culture today, and the reason the video of the MMA fighter stood out so much is I personally never changed a behavior because someone screamed at me, because someone told me to fuck off or told me I was wrong. I think we've talked about this on the show. I'm not going to do it here, not because I'm embarrassed, just because I don't like it anymore. I get it. It's still funny. I had a joke once where it was a misdirect. But I don't want to say there was a victim. I was making fun of a situation that maybe I shouldn't have. And two separate instances. At one point, a guy screamed at me, "Fuck you, that's not funny, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, fuck you. I say what I want. I do what I want. Cartman. And I got belligerent. They came at me. So I fronted up and was like, fuck you. I think it was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. An elderly couple came up to me after the show and they said, "Oh, we really enjoyed your act." I said, "Thank you." I said, "I really enjoyed it, except for one area. Can I tell you something?" I said, "Absolutely." And they took 5 minutes to talk to me about that joke, why they didn't like it. Stopped doing it. Stop doing it. One guy yells at me, "Fuck you, I'm going to tell the joke." Another person has just a talk with me. I haven't done it since. And I still think it's a funny joke. I still could try and justify doing it, but I get that, again, and I was catering to the 1%. It wasn't hurting like anyone, but there might be one or two. And that is why the MMA fight, it's just because as much as you might resent it and have every right to resent the what did you call it? The compassion flowing up where it shouldn't. Unfortunately, that is what gets through, because the woke crowd screaming and canceling and yelling "fuck you" and that doesn't work. That draws battle lines, and that's where we are today. That's why we need more compassion. And as unfair as it is, and unfortunate as it is, the oppressed need to understand, and that's a horrible phrase right there, that the ignorant are ignorant. And yelling at them does not change ignorance. Only compassion and will ever break through. And we've talked about this when I talk about my stupid high school friends. I know that by calling them my stupid high school friends, it doesn't ingrain change in them. Wow, Tim was calling me stupid. Maybe I should read a book. That's not how it works. But
like fucking Tim called me stupid again, asshole.
Yeah. So I think that's why the video stood out to me, is because that's, and I understand your frustrations and I get it. And it sucks that that's the way it seems it has to be, but it speaks to me. I can't think of his name right now. We've talked about him, the black guy that converts Klan members. He doesn't do it by yelling at him. He says, I have years-long dialogue with these people where I meet them and they mistrust me, and I just keep talking to them and I keep talking to them and eventually they walk away from the Klan. And it doesn't happen because he showed up and said, fuck you, you fucking racist Klan member. It sucks, but attrition is what works, not shouting.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I feel like in the same situation, I would like to do what that MMA fighter did. And I probably would. Like, if I was in a situation like that and somebody had it on video, I would not want to actively ruin someone else's life. I wouldn't do that. I think it's unreasonable. I really do. I think it's unreasonable. I find that the more that I study the ways that, like, kind of our thought process and our beliefs get trained into us, you know, and again, in the European thing, right? Going somewhere where it's not that, where they just don't have the relationship between the people is just built somehow differently. So when I'm over there, like, people aren't looking and going, why is my lawnmower asking for rights? That's weird. You know what I mean? You know,
but that's funny, but I don't think they have Mexicans in Europe.
Look at you. Double racism for the win.
At least we waited till this login to get canceled. Someone's still watching, they'll just pull that out of context. All right.
But you know what I mean? But, like, really, like I wonder, like, the fight that other people have consistently had in this country, right, is trying to convince people who don't look like them that they're human, right? Like, like someone comes over and says, hey, you Indians. What Indians? What are Indians? You guys are. Oh, okay. Right? like I guess we are then. Right? It's like, who owns
I don't think their first response was, no, we're indigenous people. It's like, we're just people. What do you,
Right. Who owns this land? Nobody owns the land, sir. What does it matter who owns it? Well, then I guess we can take it.
I guess it's ours.
Right. It's like,
Thank you.
Right. So, like, we can look at
blankets full of smallpox.
Right. Like, we can look, but, like, then those very people are, like, trying to say to these other people, like, hey, we're human beings. Like, what are you doing? We're humans. Yeah, but not like us humans. And it's like, it seems to be like this constant fight of a certain group of people trying to convince this other group of people that they're humans, while fully recognizing white people's humanity.
Yeah.
While the savagery is happening to us, we're being called savages, while savage things are happening to us, and we're trying to advocate for white people's humanity.
Said it's not fair. I said it sucks. It's stupid.
Like, it's fucking nonsense.
It's fucking absurd.
But that being said, I think you're right. I think it's the only way, and it's like a thankless job, because once it gets done, some, like, smart white guy is going to come along and write a book about it and act like he did it all, and everyone's going to see, right? Like, I'm kidding.
Or, like, some not smart white woman who's going to write a book about how we're all racist. I can't think of, you know who I'm referencing. I can't think of it.
Robin DiAngelo.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is, here's the issue with that book, and then we can sign off, I suppose. It's not that she's wrong, but she's not right. There is an unspoken thing here. It's not race, though. It's caste. It's not the same thing. Like,
we're not going down that rabbit hole. Let's sign off. We've talked about that.
But it's a different kind of thought process. It's not personal. And she's made it somehow like something that all white people think, fuck you, nigger. And it's like, that's not what white people think. They don't think, fuck you,
there
nigger.
You finally dropped the N-bomb. It took you a while this time.
I know, right? But, like, it's not what white people are thinking. They might secretly think, oh no, if my daughter marries a black guy, that's going to lower her chances of making money or whatever. Like they may have some
we
other
don't,
kind of fucked up thoughts. You know what I mean?
that's not
Or,
unconscious. That's very
right.
out
It's
there.
right.
That's forefront.
Yeah. Right. Like there's
That's
like, you
tuck
know,
in
there's
at bedtime, sweetie. I love you.
yeah.
Don't let the bed bug bite. Don't marry a black man.
Right. Love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet.
All right.
Anyway, yeah,
Talk
this
about
is exciting.
January
Um
21st, on my
no,
way. Did I get that right?
28th now.
20.
Yeah,
Oh,
28th.
got pushed by a week.
Fucking nonsense. But we're doing a CD release party at the Stanhope House on the 21st.
Because that's when it
We
was booked originally.
right.
This
The
is
but
the
we'll, and
Katie
we'll
Henry Band.
yeah, and we'll have
Barrett, Antar,
CDs.
Good. What?
We'll have CDs. The CDs are basically we have them in
Oh,
our
okay.
possession essentially now, so we can start not really selling them, but people have a couple previews.
Well, this is for the Katie Henry Band, of which Barrett Antar Goodwin is the musical director.
Indeed,
that can be found at katiehenrymusic.com. At Katie Henry, is it at Katie Henry Music on all the socials?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and Spotify and Apple Music. Antargoodwin.com is where you get your virtual bass lessons and or learn about projects he has coming up. Anything I'm missing? You said the 21st, January. This is January of 2022.
Yes. The videos dropping, I think, December 4th.
Yep. And is that On My Way, the single?
It is indeed.
There we go. So
I can actually send you a preview copy as long as you don't share it with anybody.
I would love to watch it. I will not share it. I've actually, dear viewer / listener, I've heard the album. It's really awesome. So, and I didn't share that with anybody. So, and I think I told you the first track right off, I'm like, and my wife said it too. And this is not an insult, but it's like, wow, it sounds like Katie Tunstall. But anyway, I mean, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
I mentioned in passing, I've gotten a couple more good professional reviews. I'll turn one into a little thing and put it on. If you're watching this, you'll see it right now. If you're listening, I don't have the quote in front of me, but I know the word brilliant was used. It said Timmel's take on modern day revenge is brilliant, something like that. But
it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it when you say that it blurs the lines of what is morally right, like we could have a whole podcast about that concept. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to say what it is.
No, but it's
stuff, but you know, just the idea.
The book is called We Are 100. And as Barrett said, it tinkers with your moral compass is the way one person put it. I did not want to create black and white. I wanted to create shades of gray. Best movie ever. Soul Man, just always got to bring it up. I just wanted to me, evil for the sake of evil is no fun. So I wanted to have people question their own morality. So the book is We Are 100. It keeps getting positive reviews. I'll keep talking about it till I write the next book. Right now I'm working on the screenplay for the book, because when you have a book that didn't sell, why not turn it into a screenplay that won't sell? I mean, why not?
Double down, man. It works for Trump.
Otherwise, there you go. Fuck yeah. Declare bankruptcy. NathanTimmel.com is where you can find all my stuff. Just search Nathan Timmel on Spotify, Apple Music. If you want to hear my comedy, just look at Nathan Timmel in the search bar of Amazon if you want to find my books or albums there. And other than that, good seeing your face, my friend. Let's try and get a guest in here next week.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's figure out who we want to torture.
Yeah, we've got a couple out there that said yes, but haven't locked in a date. So excited about two of them.
Yeah.
All right.
That's gonna be great. All right, man. Yeah, I'll talk to you in a minute.
And I looked away from the camera because I was looking at these. Stop.